The Constitution of India, Preamble. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution.
Hello children, today I am going to begin the session by sharing about love. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. In the same manner, hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Yes, my dear children, love is like a cloud. As we know, cloud does not have any shape. It is shapeless and it does not have any boundaries. This moment we can see cloud moving towards the east. The next moment we can see clouds moving towards the west. In the same manner, love does not have boundaries. The more you love yourself, the more you will be feeling free to love others, and in this manner you will be spreading happiness to others. My dear children, spread love and be happy. By saying this, I move on to the next session where we are going to learn about population growth. The density in a given habitat fluctuates due to four basic processes. That is, the population density in a given habitat. It depends on four basic processes. Number one, natality. It is the number of birth during a given period in the population that are added to the initial density. That is, in a population, if number of birth is added in a given period of time, surely it will be the natality. Natality means birth rate. Mortality means death rate. It is the number of death in the population during a period time, or we can say during a given period. The number of death taking place in a population in a given period of time gives the mortality. Third one is immigration. It is the number of individual of the same species that have come into the habitat from elsewhere during the time period. Immigration means moving inside the population in a given habitat or in a given environment or in a given area. If anybody is getting into that population, it is called immigration. It is the number of individual of the same species that have come into the habitat from elsewhere. That is immigration. And the fourth one is emigration. That is the number of individuals of population who left the habitat during the time period. That means it is just opposite of immigration. Emigration means somebody who leave the population. That is emigration. So these are the four basic paths, or we can say the four basic processes which influences the population density. Number one is natality, number two is mortality, number three is immigration, and number four is emigration. You can see this is very important. It used to come in the question paper. Here you can see population density. The symbolic form of population density is N, and you can see natality, B for birth rate, it will add to the population density, that is why positive sign is there. In the same manner, mortality, that is death rate, it will subtract, isn't it? It will subtract from the density, that is an individual is moving out, that is why a negative sign is here. Same way you can see here immigration for I is a symbolic form for immigration, and it is adding to the population because from elsewhere the individual is added to the population. And on the opposite side you can see immigration E, where you can see from the density the individual is moving out, that is why it is negative. This one is very, very important. This illustration is important. It used to come in the question paper. My dear child, you have to study it. Next, we can see the detail about the thing. Natality and immigration contributes an increase in the population density. It is been said that natality, that is the birth rate, and immigration, that is moving inside the population, these two increases the population density, whereas mortality and immigration contribute a decrease in the population density. That means mortality is the death rate and immigration is moving out of the population. Both will be decreasing the population density of a given area. Now, change in the size of population in a given time is determined by, you can see change in the population is equal to birth plus immigration minus death plus emigration, that is equal to birth stands for B, I immigration, they are added, minus death plus emigration, you can see minus death plus emigration. So, this is the formula for change in the population. Now, if n is the population density at time t, we are taking n as a population density at time t, then its density at time t plus 1, t plus 1 is change in population, isn't it? So, the population density at time t1 will be n t plus 1 is equal to n t plus the bracket in which we will be writing the formula b plus I minus d plus e closing the bracket. So, this is the formula for changing taking place in the population density. Later on we can see what happens. From the equation it is clear that if b plus I is more than d plus e, isn't it, birth rate plus emigration is more than death rate plus emigration, then the population density would increase, otherwise it will decrease. So, if a change in the population is taking place, in that if birth rate and immigration is more compared to death rate and immigration, surely what will happen? The population density will increase, otherwise if it is opposite to it, it will decrease. Now, under normal condition, birth and death are the most important factors influencing population density. So, under normal condition we can say birth rate as well as death rate, both are influencing the population density. Due to the changes taking place in birth rate as well as death rate, the population density also affects. Now, the next one is carrying capacity, which is denoted by K. It is again very, very important. The maximum number of individuals of a population which can be provided with optimum resources for their healthy living is called carrying capacity. So, what is carrying capacity? It is a maximum number of individuals in the population who will be provided with optimum resources in an habitat or in an area. If an individual is there, surely that individual will be getting optimum resources for its healthy living. That is called carrying capacity. It is very, very important. In the question paper related to carrying capacity, question used to come. Now next is related to population growth models. The graphic pattern or the graphic representation obtained when a population growth is plotted against time, it is called population growth model. That is the graphical representation of a population growth. When it is been plotted against time, we will be getting population growth model. And there are two models of population growth. One is exponential growth, the number 2 is logistic growth. Exponential growth is also called geometric growth. It is common where the resources, that is food and space, are unlimited. In the area where food and space are unlimited, there we can see exponential growth. That means it will be always increasing. In the beginning, the organism in the new environment grow slowly. That is stationary phase, it will be there. In the beginning, when the individual is there in the habitat newly, that time what is the condition? It will be the stationary phase, or we can say the growth will be slowly. But later on what will happen, we can see. Then the population grows in an exponential fashion. When exponential growth is plotted in a graph, the curve becomes J-shaped. You can see here population size on the x-axis, and on the y-axis you can see time. And what is happening there? In the beginning the growth is slow, but later on what happened? A steady increase has taken place there, isn't it? That's why it is in the form of a J shape. That is related to exponential or geometric growth, and the equation for this growth model can be derived as dn by dt is equal to b minus d into n, and let b minus d is equal to Rn. Therefore, dn by dt is equal to Rn. Once again I will be telling about it. dn by dt is equal to b minus d into n, and let b minus d is equal to Rn. So, dn by dt is equal to Rn. This is the formula for exponential growth, and here n stands for population size, b stands for birth rate, d stands for death rate, R stands for intrinsic rate of natural increase. This is important. R stands for intrinsic rate of natural increase, and T stands for time. Therefore, we got the equation as dn by dt is equal to Rn, where this d stands for the rate of change. Now, dn by dt represents the rate of change in population size. So, it represents the rate of change in the population size. Now, the integral form of the exponential growth equation is nt is equal to n0 ERT. Nt is equal to n0 ERT. And we can see here nt is equal to population density after time t. Population density, n stands for population density, t stands for at time t, and n0 population density at time 0. So, this one is the initial population, isn't it? Now, here again R, it stands for intrinsic rate of natural increase, and E stands for the base of natural logarithm. So, that is related to exponential growth model. My dear children, exponential growth model is very, very important. You have to study it. Okay. Now, the next growth model is logistic growth. It is also known as Verheldt-Perl logistic growth. There is an initial period of slow growth called lag phase. It is followed by a rapid growth phase called log phase or exponential growth phase. So, in the case of logistic, the first phase we can see here is lag phase. Later on we can see the log phase, which is also called exponential phase, and when the environment resistance comes, growth slows down. And again, after an rapid increase, when there will be environment resistance taking place, that time again what happens, the growth slows down, that is deceleration phase will be taking place there, thus reaches its maximum. It is called a stagnant phase, and later on the last is the stagnant phase, which is also known as asymptote. Asymptote. And here you can see the graph related to logistic phase. This one is the exponential phase, isn't it? That is exponential growth, J-shaped growth. You have to focus on this one. Here you can see in the beginning this is the lag phase, later on it becomes the log phase, and then you can see here what happens, deceleration phase is taking place, and when it reaches the carrying capacity level, what happens, stagnant phase is taking place. So this one is lag phase, this is the logistic phase or log phase, which is increasing here, and later on here what happens, environmental resistance phase will come, that is called deceleration phase. And when the resources getting minimized or limited, what will happen, the growth becomes limited there, and it will reach to its maximum, to the carrying capacity, where it becomes stagnant or stationary. So that is related to the logistic growth model, which is also known as sigmoid growth curve model, or it is in the form of S shape. You can see it is in the form of S shape. So it is also a S shaped growth model. So you can see here in logistic growth, the curve is S shaped or sigmoid. This type of population growth is called Warholt-Pearl logistic growth. This is again important in the question paper. This used to come and you have to write the answer related to it. Here you can see again the graph, logistic growth curve graph, population density shown this side, and this side the time is shown. In the beginning you can see slowly the growth is taking place, later on acceleration has taken place, and then you can see here deceleration, and then the steady state, or we can say stationary state has reached, where we can see a carrying capacity is there. That is, what is carrying capacity? Maximum resources given to an individual for its healthy living. So till here the growth will be taking place, and later on it will be steady state. That's why it is S in shape, or we can say it as sigmoid shape. Now the curve has the following stages: lag phase, acceleration phase, deceleration phase, and stagnant phase, which is also called asymptote. When a population is growing with limited resources, the first phase is lag phase. Here the resources are slowly absorbed. In the beginning, when the population is growing only, what happens? There will be a limited resources, and due to that the absorption of resources will be slowly, and that phase is called lag phase. The second phase is acceleration phase, where resources are utilized vigorously. Acceleration means increasing. And the third phase is deceleration, where the resources are utilized at its maximum. The resources which is available there in that habitat will be utilized in the completely, it is utilized in the third phase, that is called deceleration phase. And what happens later on? So there is a shortage of resources. Finally, it reaches constant level when the population density reaches the carrying capacity. Here you can see again the graph related to both, that is exponential growth curve as well as logistic growth curve. In the case of exponential growth curve, you can see the formula is dn by dt is equal to Rn. Here you can see in the beginning the growth is slow, but later on what happened? A steady increase has taken place, that is called exponential increases. And in the case of logistic, this blue color is logistic, and here you can see in the beginning it is a log phase where the growth is slow, but later on acceleration has taken place and there is a exponential growth taken place, and later on deceleration phase is taking place because the resources which is been available there is been utilized to its maximum, and when the resources is been going to finish, the growth has become steady, and this is the carrying capacity level where the resources will be getting over. Therefore, the growth is also steady, or we can say stationary, isn't it? That is why in the case of logistic we can see a S-shaped curve or a sigmoid shape, and the formula for the logistic curve is dN by dt is equal to Rn in the bracket k minus n by k, where is R is intrinsic rate, n is the change in n is the population density, isn't it? Here change in population density by change in time gives the intrinsic rate with population density by into carrying capacity minus the population density by carrying capacity. So, we will be getting the answer for logistic growth curve. You can see here, this one is carrying capacity, the red one is exponential growth, and the blue one is logistic growth. I think you would have understood this graph very nicely. This graph is very important, my dear children. You have to understand it and you have to learn it, because in the question paper this graph used to come. You can see here logistic growth is described by the following equation: dN by dt is equal to Rn in the bracket k minus n by k bracket closed, where n is the population density at time t, R is the intrinsic rate of natural increase, and k is the carrying capacity. Okay. This formula is again important. Logistic growth model is considered as more realistic growth model as resources are becoming the limiting factor. So, this growth model is the realistic one, because here the carrying capacity, or we can say the resources which are present there, will be becoming the limiting factor there. So, that shows how there is a increase, decrease and stable population growth. So, that is why it is said that it is the realistic growth model. This is again important, my dear children, you have to understand it. Now, the next topic is life history variation. Population evolved to maximize their reproductive fitness in their habitat. This reproductive fitness is called Darwinian fitness. So, what is Darwinian fitness? It is the reproductive fitness of the population in their habitat, that is called Darwinian fitness. Now, what is population interaction? We can see important types of population interactions are predation, competition, parasitism, commensalism, mutualism, amensalism. The first one is predation. It is the food relation between two organisms in which one captures and feed on another. This thing already you would have studied in your 8th standard. You have to just recollect it, and few topics are there which will be included here with this, which is new to you. You have to focus to that also, my dear children. So, what is predation? It is the food relationship between two organisms where one is captured and is being eaten, isn't it? Predators are of following types: carnivores, example tiger. Tiger is a predator, and here deer will be the prey. In the case of herbivores, rabbit is a predator, grass will be the prey, isn't it? And omnivores, man. In the case of insectivorous, we can say Venus flytrap or Nepenthes, or we can say pitcher plant. And the next one is phytophagous organism. This is important. In the question paper, this used to come. Phytophagous organisms, that is they feed on plant sap, and most of the insects, that is 25% of the insects are phytophagous plants, isn't it? Phagus means eating, phyto means sap, isn't it? Plant sap, phytophagous organisms. Now the role of predator. What is the role of predator in the ecosystem or in the nature? We can see it is a conduit for energy transfer. It is becoming a medium for the energy transfer. Number 2, it helps in maintaining species diversities by reducing the competition among species. When it is reducing the competition among the species, surely the balance will be taking place in the species diversities really according to the predators. Next one, it keeps the prey population under control, as in the absence of predation, prey species will become increased and causes ecosystem instability. That is correct only, because it has been said that in the absence of predation, what will happen? The prey species will be increasing and the instability in the ecosystem will be taking place. That's why predation is playing an important role in keeping the prey population constant. Next one, predators in nature are prudent. Why? It is important. If a predator is too efficient and over exploits the prey might become extinct. Later, the predator will also become extinct due to the lack of food. So, predators in nature are prudent. They are acting in a balanced manner. Prudent means they are acting in a balanced manner. It has been said that if predators are too efficient, what will happen? They will exploit the prey, and because of that prey might become extinct, and due to that what will happen later? The predators, they will not get the prey and they will also get extinct, and that's why what is needed there? There should be a balance is needed there in the nature, and it has been done by the predators. That's why it has been said predators in nature are prudent, as they are acting in a balanced manner. Now the next one is the prey defense mechanism. As the predators, they are eating the prey, surely the prey should have a defense mechanism to protect themselves. So we can see what are the defense mechanism present in the prey. In the first one, defense in animals. Certain insects and frogs are camouflage, that is they are colored to avoid being detected by the predators. We have seen frogs in the case of frog, or in the case of insects, we can see they used to change the color according to the ground or the soil or the tree, whatever is present there, and it is taking place because they want to escape from the predator. So that is the one of the defense mechanism we can see in animals. The monarch butterfly are poisonous, as it is distasteful due to the poisonous chemical content in its body. So the next defense action taking place in the animal, that is monarch butterfly, and it is distasteful because it is having a chemical present in its body, and that is making it to defense against the predator. Next one is related to the defense in plants. In the case of plants, thorns protect the plants. Example, cactus, we already know about it. And next plant is Calotropis plant. It produces poisonous cardiac glycosides as chemical defense. So in case of Calotropis plant, we can see it is having a chemical called cardiac glycosides, and this is poisonous. So no predators will be reaching towards the Calotropis plant, and certain plants are producing alkaloids such as nicotine in tobacco plant, opium in poppy plant, caffeine in coffee plant. So these are the plants which are producing alkaloids such as nicotine, opium, caffeine. So this is again important, my dear children, you have to study it. Next one is competition, an interaction between two or more organisms for obtaining the same resources. If the resources are same and there is an interaction between two or more organisms, it is called competition, and it is of two types, interspecific competition and intraspecific competition. In the name, from the name itself, interspecific, that means competition between individuals of different species. Example, competition for consuming grass by the consumer. If rabbit is one of the species and buffalo is another species, two different species are there, but the competition is there for the grass. That such type of competition is called interspecific competition. Next one is intra-specific competition. From the name itself we can say it is the competition between the individual of the same species. Example, flamingos and residential fish, both are same species and they are competing for the common food, that is zooplankton. So here this is the example of intra-specific competition. This is again important, you have to study it. Now related to the next topic related to competition is interference competition. Here it has been said that the feeding efficiency of one species might be reduced due to the interference or inhibitory presence of the other species even if resources are abundant. Even if the resources are abundant, there will be reduction or decrease in the feeding efficiency of species because there is an interference and inhibitory presence of other species. Such type of competition is called interference competition. And the next competition is competition exclusion. From the name itself we can say that when the resources are limited, competitively superior species will slowly eliminate the other species. We know that if resources will be limited, what will happen? Those are superior, they will dominate, and those who are inferior, those who are weak, they will be eliminated. That is competitive exclusion. And based on competitive exclusion, we can see Gauss competitive exclusion principle, which states that closely related species cannot coexist for a longer period as they compete for the resources, thus competitively inferior one will be eliminated. That is competitive exclusion. It is again important. It has been said that closely related species, they will not be able to coexist, they cannot live together because they are competing for the resource, and here inferior one, the weaker one will be eliminated. That is important again. Next one is related to competitive release. A species is restricted to an area due to superior species. Now when the superior species is removed, the small species flourish. Competitive release means a species will be there, or certain species will be there, they will be restricted to an area, isn't it? But what happened? If that superior species is removed from that area, automatically these small species, they will flourish in that area itself. That is competitive release. Based on competitive release, you can see Kernel's field experiment, which is proving this competitive release by giving an example. Superior barnacle dominates the intratidal area and excludes smaller barnacle from that zone. This is the example of competitive release. In an intratidal area in the sea or ocean, there are superior barnacles, and these larger barnacles, they will exclude the smaller barnacles from that intratidal zone. But later on, what will happen? If these superior barnacles, they are removed from that intratidal zone on that area, what will happen? That area will be flourished by smaller barnacles. That is competitive release. Next one is coexistence of population. When the resources are in abundance, the closely related species can coexist rather than exclusion. Recent studies do not support the above said principle. This above said principle which has been there, it is not supporting, the recent studies is not supporting that. Those studies, we can see what is the another term. So it has been said that resource partishing is the most important method, or it is another method where two species compete for the same resource. They could avoid competition by choosing different times for feeding. If two species are there and they are competing for the same resource, surely competition will be there, but here what is happening, they are avoiding competition by choosing different times for feeding or foraging, isn't it? MacArthur shown that 5 closely related species of warblers living on the same tree were able to avoid competition and coexist due to behavioral difference in their foraging activities. These warblers, they are living together, they are able to coordinate with each other as they have made a difference in their foraging activities, that is the feeding time or feeding period is being changed between them. That is why they are able to live together on the same tree. That is one of the example of resource partnership, it is important. So, that is related to competition. And the third one is parasitism, a negative interaction between the two different species in which parasite derives food from the host. It is a negative interaction, and here the parasite will be harming the host by deriving the food. In this interaction, the parasite is benefited and the host is harmed. The parasite is benefited and the host is harmed is parasitism. And parasites are of two types, ectoparasite and endoparasite. Ectoparasites are parasites that live on the external surface of the body of the host. Example, lice on human, ticks on dogs. Cuscuta is a total stem parasite we can see on the trees. Next one is endoparasite. From the term itself we can say parasites that live inside the body of the host. Example, roundworm, tapeworm, etc. So, these are the two types of parasites, and one more type of parasitism is there, and that is brood parasitism. Brood parasites, that is certain birds are there, they lay their eggs in the nest of other birds which are the host for incubation, hatching and rearing. And we know about cuckoo bird. Cuckoo bird does not have its own nest. It will lay egg in the nest of the crow. This is the common example for brood parasitism. My dear children, this is again very important. You have to study it. So, that is about parasitism. The fourth interaction is commensalism. The interaction in which one species benefits and the other is neither harmed nor benefited. In this interaction, one will be benefited, but the other one neither harmed nor benefited. Example, epiphytes, certain orchids are there which are called vanda. Number 2, barnacles and the whale. Number 3, cattle, egret and grazing cattle. And number 4, sea anemone and clone fish. In the case of epiphytes, we know that these are the orchids which will be taking the support of trees for climbing so that they can reach on the top of the tree for getting the sunlight. And barnacles and whale, the relationship is that you would have seen on the body of the whale, these barnacles, that is small fish, they will be getting attached, and the whale, when it will be moving from one region to another region in the ocean or sea, these barnacles will be also travelling with the whale. And here whale is neither harmed nor benefited, but barnacles, they are benefited. The same way cattle, egret and grazing cattle, isn't it? On the top of the cow or cattle we can see, on the body of the cow or cattle we can see small birds, they used to sit, isn't it? And they will be picking up insects from the body of the cow, but the cattle or cow, they are neither benefited nor harmed. Same way in the case of sea anemone as well as clone fish, that is related to commensalism. And the fifth one is mutualism. It is an association of two species in which both species are benefited. That is, mutualism is equal to symbiosis, which means living together. Example, we know about lichen. Lichen is a symbiotic association between fungus and algae. So, one example is lichen. The next example is mycorrhiza, that also we know that it is an association, or we can say it is a symbiotic association of the fungus with the roots of higher plants. Next example of mutualism is co-evolution. Here the species of fig trees, they have tight one-to-one relationship with the pollinator species of wasp. Wasp is an insect and it is having a good relationship with the fig tree. We can see what it is. The wasp pollinates the fig inflorescence while searching for egg laying sites. So, how it is pollinating the fig tree? When it is in search of egg laying sites, and in return what the fig tree is doing, it offers the wasp some of its seeds as food for the developing larvae of wasp. So, this is how mutualism is taking place between wasp and fig tree, and such type of mutualism is called as co-evolution. Another example of mutualism is orchid pollinator interaction. Here we can see orchid employs sexual deceit to get pollination done by a species of bees. One petal of its flower resembles to the female of the bee in size, color and marking. So, this is how the mutualism is taking place between the orchid and a bee. In the case of an orchid, one of its petal is resembling like a female bee. Due to that, the bee will be having a pseudo notion and it will copulate with the flower of the orchid, and thus pollination is taking place there, and such type of copulation is known as pseudo copulation, and it is an example of mutualism. This is also important, my dear children, you have to study it. The sixth one is amensalism. Interaction between two different species in which one species is harmed and the other is neither benefited nor harmed. In such type of interaction, one will be harmed but the other is neither benefited nor harmed. Example, penicillium, which is a fungus, it produces toxin penicillin which kills the bacteria, but it is neither harmed nor benefited. That is the example of amensalism, and you can see here certain figures related to the interaction. The first one is related to predation, this one is related to competition, this one is related to mutualism or symbiosis, this one is commensalism, and this one is parasitism. So, that is related to the different types of interaction taking place in nature. And based on population interaction, we can see the table also. This table is also very, very important. You have to understand it and you have to study it, as this table used to come in the question paper. Here you can see type of interaction, effects on X, effects on Y, an example. In the case in your textbook, instead of effects on X and effects on Y, it is written as species A, species B. Okay. So, here you can see neutralism, the effect on X and effect on Y is nil, and its example is rabbits and deer living together. Amensalism, effect on X is nil but effect on Y is negative. Black walnut tree has chemical harming others. Black walnut tree is there which is having chemical and it will harm others, but it is neither benefited nor harmed. In commensalism, effect on X is positive but effect on Y species is nil. Cattle, egrets, feeds on insects flushed out of grass. Competition, both the species the effect will be negative. Two species fight for limiting resources. In case of mutualism, both the species having a positive effect, example is lichen, and the last one is predation or parasitism, where the effect on the X species is positive and the effect on Y species is negative, and the example is lion eats zebra. So, this is related to the population interaction taking place in the nature. It is very, very important, my dear children. With this, the chapter 6 organisms and population is completed, and you have to go through this slide and you have to understand it, and you have to jot the points in your notebook, and you can send it through WhatsApp so that I can go through it and I can give you the feedback related to this chapter. My dear children, with this, in botany 7 chapters are over. The 8th chapter, that is environmental issues, we are going to do seminar. Related to seminar, we will be discussing and we will be doing it. So my dear children, in the next class we will be meeting soon. Till then, take care.